Okay, so let's start it up, man. Go ahead.
We go.
Oh, I just saw you pop up on my Facebook. Ah. Oh, maybe I can hear you guys.
So we are live, guys.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
here's.
I just saw you pop up on my Facebook. Ah. Oh, maybe I can hear you guys. I think there's like a 1 second delay.
Well,
Gonna
hello,
mute the
guys,
computer also.
to our humble group. Today we are going
I think there's like a 1 second delay.
amazing artist, as amazing anchor. But let me introduce my partner in the group first, the amazing artist Marcelo. Hi there, Marcelo.
Hey everyone.
Let me introduce our amazing guest, Tim Goernert.
Goernert.
Okay, Goernert.
It's German, but no one ever pronounces it right. So
Okay. So tell us, Tim, about your secret origins.
my secret origins. Well, I'm an entrepreneur by trade. I'm actually during the day. I'm a printer, an online printer, and a graphic designer. I've been doing that for about 20 years. I've been blessed to have my own company. I went to art school. When I first started, I had a football injury. I couldn't play for the rest of the summer, and I started drawing. Got into comics, and that's kind of how I got into art school, through my comic book artwork. And then I graduated. So I'm a trained illustrator by trade. And then I worked for various companies, an embroiderer house, designing logos and stuff like that. And then I worked for a real estate company. And then I went to video game school and learned how to be a video game modeler, animator. Started my own company with my other friend, with my partner, and we started developing video games. And then we transitioned to multimedia, and then we transitioned into online printing, just to give a better service, like have a product, more or less, So we're like brokers. We have about 20 different suppliers, and along the way I do graphic design. I help the clients out, and on the side I also do free business consultation. I give back to my community. I help startups. I don't charge a dime for my time. I'll do them free marketing. I want to give them the best product and the best look, because I have over 20 years experience as a designer, and I like to give back to my community. And I've helped out like 6 different companies with their look and everything like that. And then at nighttime, I rekindled my love for back to comics again. Like, I just friggin' love it, and especially on Facebook. There's so many sites now, and there's so many art communities where it excites you. You get excited about stuff like that, and you see these new artists, these guys. You would never ever get to sample or experience their artwork unless you saw them in a comic book or something. But there's so many other great artists out there that gets exciting, and it put a fire under me. And then when I get into something, I put 100%. Like, I'll study all these tutorials. I'll go online. I'll find documentaries, and I'll watch I must have watched the Image Revolution documentary about 10 times already. I'll just sit there, and I'll sit there on my tablet while I'm drawing. I'm listening to it, or I'll watch the Jack Kirby documentary, and I'll sit there and just listen to every word. Or I'll watch Todd McFarlane's little videos, or Jim Lee's documentaries, and I'll get excited. And then it started leading me into inking. Like, I'm a decent penciler. I'm out of practice, but I really found a joy and a love for inking others. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to go on my Instagram. You can see my transition of all the different artists I'm trying to emulate. I'm trying to, learn from the best. So you find the guys like David Finch or like Ivan Reis. There's so many great artists out there that you can learn from. And that's when I started inking. Now I had to make a decision. Did I want to go traditional? And that's something you're gonna have to, like, it's like any medium, you have to learn it, right? And or it's like if you're learning a new software, all the software is pretty much the same. It's just the navigation and learning how to use it. So, and then I was watching a lot of Todd McFarlane's videos, and he does everything digital. So I was fascinated by this, and I'm like, well, I don't have to buy paper. I don't have to buy nibs. I don't have to do, I don't have to get inventory. If I make a mistake, if I did a digital spill, so to speak, I just do undo. You know what I mean? And I'm watching some of these guys on these videos because I'm trying to learn as much as I can and absorb as much information. And I've had actually other. Oh, did we lose Marcelo?
Yeah, Marcelo, I think the connection, we lost him, but we will be waiting for him.
You want to wait for him or just keep going or what?
We can complete and he will log in.
Okay. So yeah, so when I saw that, I was fascinated by it. I went out and on one of those like secondhand places sites online, and I got myself a nice 23-inch tablet, and I already had Photoshop, so I just started doing that, and I just got really excited about it. Maybe I should have learned the original medium just to understand how brushstrokes work, but you know what? Everything's a learning curve, and there's so many tutorials and there's a vast library of videos online that teach you from everything. So there's no excuse, basically. You don't. I mean, I'm already a trained illustrator, so it's like I'm already familiar. Like, I mean, I did hours of life drawing course. Like, I think one of the questions we were talking about was should we be familiar with anatomy? Absolutely, because you have to understand, like, when you're drawing the lines, when you're putting ink over the lines, you're not just tracing it. You're trying to understand the shape that you're creating, and you're trying to build shape and form in a 2D space to make it look 3D. So we missed you, buddy.
First, you have to be understanding the masses and the masses, so you can think carefully and imagine how you are going to build and curve this message. Like if you are inking a deltoid muscle, so you
Yes.
can give it depth, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, that's where more importantly line weight comes in too, right? And it also depends on your penciler. I mean, they have a different style. I mean, lately I've been playing around. Like, I used to like the dark stuff, like with a lot of cross hatching, and I love dark and light, and I like indirect light. So that's a real challenge sometimes, because if you're cross hatching, you can't just cross hatch. You kind of have to. It comes down to pressure sensitivity. You know what I mean with your pen. 'Cause I ink completely digital. So and actually I mean, I know there's a lot of programs out there, and they have custom. They already have their built-in brushes, but I actually built my own brush. Like, I designed my own custom one based on one of Todd McFarlane's tutorials, because I know how I like to ink, and I know how I like to put the pressure on my pen, and I know I like to make my strokes, and I have a certain style of that. And I mean, obviously, it's one of those things where you're just going to get better and better and better as you go along, And it's funny because if you ever watch a traditional inker, they're drawing and they're turning their paper, because when they do a crosshatch or a line work, they have a certain stroke with their hand, right? So it's the same thing when I'm inking digitally. I'm rotating the canvas around, and I'm doing my brush stroke like that. So it's the same kind of the same concept, basically, but but you just don't. I mean, when I watch these guys who ink traditionally, they got the paper on their hand there, and they're like, they're so technical, and they're so like immaculate how their brush strokes, and I'm like, that's not my gig, man. I can't do that. It's just like I don't know. Call me a lazy inker, but it's like, oh man. But I mean, I'm the type of guy that when I eat spaghetti, I got spaghetti sauce on my shirt. That's not my gig. So good luck with that. But with the digital inking, it gives you that much more power. Obviously, and then if you have to fill in something like a big black area, you can just lasso around it, fill it in, and then it's much more time consuming. I think. I mean, it's not time consuming, but actually, it saves you time. That's what it's all about, right? Because obviously, especially now, if you're in the industry and you have all these timelines, deadlines, you got to be effective. Like, you got to produce results. Some days you're not going to feel like drawing, some days you are, and some days you're not going to be motivated. But you know what, I used to do powerlifting, like lifting heavy weights and stuff. And I was watching one of these, it was a podcast, and one of the guys said, like, someone asked that question, like, what do you do for motivation? And I think it resonates through any kind of industry or anything that you do. When it comes down to his motivation is an excuse, basically. And they're right. It's like, oh, I don't feel like it. So what he said, which really stuck with me as an artist and as a lifter, was he goes, well, he used the F word, but I'll say screw motivation. And he said, trust the discipline. Trust the discipline, because we all know how to draw at this point in the game, whether we're learning or not. He goes, trust the discipline. He goes, some days you're going to have terrible days. You're going to have bad lifts. And I was just translating that. Some days nothing's going to go right on the canvas. But he goes, doesn't matter. Even if you do it for 5 or 10 minutes a day, trust the discipline. And some days you're going to whip out some of your best work. And some days it's going to be great work. Some days it's going to be good work. And some days it's like, but just keep doing it. Trust the discipline. And I thought that was something that really stuck with me, for a lot of things in life. Just get used to the habit of doing it.
Great advice. What are you saying? Definitely, I agree.
It's just something it stuck with me, and I thought for anyone trying to get in the industry, you don't feel like drawing. There's always something to draw, whether it's your hand or experience, or even like if you're just getting into it, just copy other artists. It's okay to copy them. That's how I learned at the beginning. I was pulling out old comic books, and I was just like, I like this page, I'm gonna draw this panel, kind of thing. And then when you kind of close to it, it's like, wow, cool. And then all of a sudden you draw it again, but now you put a little bit of your flair into it, and you change it up a little bit, but you get your inspiration, right? So that's what makes it fun and exciting, So, but for me, it's like I try to put. I've been putting in lately, roughly 4 to 6 hours a night at nighttime after work. I cook and clean for my wife and daughter. I'm lucky, I'm fortunate because I can work from home. So I've been working from home for the last 8 years. So I do my business during the day online, and then at nighttime I do my family life. And then usually from like 10 o'clock, I'm watching a Netflix show or a documentary while I'm drawing, and I go to bed at 3 in the morning. It's like,
absolutely.
I'm drawing, and I get excited about it. I can't wait to post my ink job on Instagram. Get it out there. So the next morning I wake up and I get people's feedback, and so it gets exciting. So.
This is so cool. Sorry, I got disconnected.
That's okay.
I had a problem. So you talk about your secret origins, and you talk about that you were an entrepreneurial, so graphic designer,
yep.
and you're right now doing also freelance comic books or inking area.
Honestly, I haven't even broken the industry. I'm just I want to get into the industry if I can. I sent a few portfolio stuff, but some of my earlier stuff. But I look back, and it's one of those things where you don't even get a rejection letter. You just, they don't respond to you. So
I see.
It's like, and then you get guys like Todd McFarlane, he has like literally over like 300 rejection letters,
Yes, actually, I saw.
And
I know.
You can't give up. If this is something you really want and you really want to do, it always comes down to like those motivational talkers. It's this simple. How badly do you want it?
Exactly.
And just because someone says no doesn't mean it's not good. Maybe they didn't get it, or maybe they didn't see it, or it gets shuffled in with a bunch of stuff. But keep producing, because keep doing it if you love it, and I promise you're gonna get better. You do 10,000 hours of anything, you're gonna become pretty efficient. Some people get there faster. Like some people are just natural born runners. They can run like the wind. They're like legs and lungs. And they just like they never trained a day in their life. It's like, and there's other people that got to work so hard to get fast. So everyone's capability. I think anyone's capable of being an artist. Some people are more prone to being great artists, masters. We've all seen some penciler guys. Like, holy cow, man! It's like, I'm never gonna be that good. It's like. Yeah, I can put the hours in and I can get really good, but I don't know if I can get that good, It's like, but maybe that's the wrong mindset. But at the same time, it's like, don't give up. Keep pushing, man. Keep drawing, man. Don't be discouraged. Like it's okay. You're gonna make mistakes. Sometimes the head's gonna be too long, or
And I really like your approach of how you work ethic. That this is like a work habits that you are mentioning. This is very cool.
I'm in the industry, and I'm just busting my fingers just to get better and better and better.
Actually,
you guys noticed my work, and you have me on your show, right? That's a big honor for me, and I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you here, and it's great that you're sharing all these experiences, because people there are also want to enter to the industry. Depending of their path, this kind of information always helps. I actually. If it's okay, I don't know. Do you want to go to the next point, or
absolutely, whatever you guys want, you call it, man. I'm happy to be here.
So basically, you just you focus on graphic design. You also draw, of course. And do you have any? We have this question: weapons of choice and materials. They just like kind of your
like. I also, if you actually go on my Instagram page, I actually have some paintings that I've done, acrylic paintings of the Hulk. and stuff like that. So I can do that. But you know what? I mean, I'm getting old. I only have so many hours in the day. You know what I mean? And it's like, what do I really want to push my time on, kind of thing? Because I can do a painting and it'll take me a couple of days. It's gonna look great, but at the same time, I get more satisfaction out of my digital tablet. I love digital inking. Like I said, it all comes down to efficiency, speed. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna get hired as a painter. You know, like, I'm not like an Alex Ross or anything like that. But I do decent. My stuff's pretty decent. I mean, if you look at it on, if you go search Red Bush on Instagram, you can see my stuff if you scroll down of some of the things I've done. Like, I've done 3D printing as well. I made my own custom like skull mask that I made for paintball. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And it's like a faceplate that goes over it. Looks pretty damn cool, man. Like, I designed it and modeled it, and I have a 3D printer and I printed it. But you're saying my weapon of choice? Where is it? Hold on. This guy. And this thing's all beat up and old, and I got a piece of tape there because every time it would pop off and the battery would fly out, so I had to tape it. But this is it. I don't know if you can see that. That's it. And I have my tablet. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
You know, that's my 3D printer.
Oh, you have a 3D printer, man. That's
I got one of those too, man. Just for fun stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, you know.
Scientist,
What's that?
You can make your own samurai stand with the 3D printer for your stylus or something like that.
These guys, look at that. Is that cool?
Oh,
like the guys from Overwatch.
Oh, that's so cool.
Look at that. I printed a Groot, you know. I am Groot. That's cool.
That's so cool.
And this is my favorite one. Look at this one. This one's awesome. Look at this.
Oh,
I'm Batman.
this is so nice, man.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So cool.
Oh my God, you have a heaven there. You have a paradise.
You know what? I've been very blessed. I've worked very hard my whole life. You know, I never gave up. Success doesn't happen overnight. It does for some people.
Of course not.
And I think that once in a blue moon success, I think that pollutes the whole system, and everyone thinks, oh, I could be famous tomorrow too, you know. And it doesn't work that way. That's not reality. And it's not about making millions of dollars. It's about getting fulfillment out of your life. And what is it you really want? You know,
Exactly.
you break it down, and like, I'm living the dream. I have my own business for 20 years. I've been married for 22 years. I have a beautiful daughter. I got amazing friends. I got supportive friends. And it's all about surrounding yourself with the right people. You know what I mean? You got to cut out negativity. And that resonates with everything, man. Negative people, I mean, as much as you love them, you got to cut them out sometimes, man. It's like a parasite, and it just grows, and it sickles into your happiness.
Yeah,
so,
like with the Eagles, like this.
Exactly. You know, so for me, I built up the things I want and the things that I love. And I always had a vision. Like, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. How am I going to get it? What can I do to get it? And then you just make it happen. You know, like, ultimately, I mean, I'm hoping I'm going to get it. I know I'm going to get it. I've done a few ink jobs for independent companies, for indie startups and stuff like that. And, you know, I didn't charge anything because I was happy to do it. You know, so I did some pinups and stuff like that, and some pages already. And that was a great experience, you know. So it's like I'm ready to go to the next step. And I think my work speaks for itself. And I know I have the work ethic to do it, you know, so.
I think that is the foundation of success, that what you're mentioning, definitely. And if you want to enter, so your goal right now is to enter 100% to the industry, like 100% active. That is kind of your goal right now. Well, definitely you have.
I like to start inking. Just
inking. Oh,
inking. People, that's my sole focus is inking. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to color. I can color. I don't want to pencil. I can pencil, but I'll be more effective and better as an inker.
That's your
how
skill,
I see it. Like, I'd rather.
I mean, see.
It always goes back to what, you know, the famous guys like McFarlane and Rob Liefeld says. Listen, you never apply for all 5 things, because no one's ever going to get hired for all 5 things. Focus on one thing.
I agree.
And make the best stuff for that, and then it'll go from there. You know, so that's how I'm looking at it now. Like I have nothing to lose now. You know, like, I have time that I can put into it. I have years of experience, you know, being a professional. So, you know, I understand timelines. I understand, you know, professionalism. I used to do sales for my company for years. I used to talk to like CEOs of companies. I know how to talk to people. That's I was a waiter for 8 years when I was in college. that's like a psychology 101 course. You know what I mean? You learn how to pick
That's
up
true.
on details.
That's
So
true.
those things help, So it's funny because all my experiences brought me to this. You know what I mean? So it's exciting. It feels and for me it's fulfilling. Like even though I'm inking every night, I'm not making any money doing it. I get so much joy out of it, and at the same time, I'm just like when I'm drawing, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about my life's problems outside the house. I'm not thinking about anything else. So it's very therapeutic too. And
Yeah, great.
that's where I'm coming from, man.
So you just mentioned a very important topic. Does that outside problems, the challenges that you face or your family face, does it affect your line? If you are happy, does it that you feel that it affects your line being thinner or being sicker? If you
Yep.
are sad, does it make your line in the sick? Do you feel that when you're or you're ranking?
Like when I'm inking, do I like um I'm just trying to understand the question. So
Like
uh
basically, what challenges do you face like an artist? Because I think we all agree that we are emotionals.
oh, I think we're all
Yeah.
sensitive
So
to certain things, and
I agree. Yeah.
I think by default we're all insecure. Like
Hmm.
we're very insecure about our work. It's like comedians, like they're the most depressed people in the world, but they just want to make people happy. But they don't want to. At the same time, some of them don't want the other comedian to be funnier than them. You know what I mean? Or same thing with an artist. We're always insecure of our work, and I think ultimately too, it's like, am I good enough? I mean, obviously, a lot of the guys that are coming on the site are just, are drawing recreationally. Some guys are already working in the industry, and then there's some people that are trying to get into the industry, and bringing the industry. That's the hardest part. And once you get in, it's still not that glamorous. Now you got to budget. You have to manage your time, and you still got to pay your rent. So a lot of guys have to have a day job. You know what I mean? Because I mean, especially these indie comics, they don't pay much. I mean, they have these crowdfunders, unless you're like Dan Fraga or something like that, or Art Thibert. They put a campaign on, boom. They make $100,000 like in 2 days or something like that. But for a regular indie developer, they're just struggling to get $5,000, and usually that's gonna, they're not gonna make any money off of it if they're paying, an inker, or they're paying, they're not paying them much. Like they're not, usually it's probably about half the page rate that you would normally get, I think, like, $25, $50, if that. So, I mean, even if you do start working, you're not going to be able, I mean, honestly, I don't think you can make a living, at the beginning. I think that's just the reality of it. But if you keep doing it and you start meeting other people, and obviously the more you do it, the better you're going to get. You know what I mean? So your work's going to get better, and then it's going to be the value of your time and the value of the work that you're doing is definitely going to increase over time. It takes time. That's why if you're young, it's great. I'm an old guy, but I don't care. I just like drawing, and if I can bring my artwork, and I mean, obviously I don't want to get ripped off, but at the same time, I know my work's got value to it. And so hopefully, in time, I'll be able to monetize it, So as far as daily life and struggles, I mean, I think that would be the biggest one for anyone getting in the industry, is like, especially, if you get into the Marvel industry, and if you get into DC or Image, fantastic. I mean, that's like, that's the keys to the kingdom. But, more than likely, you're probably not going to get there yet. Doesn't mean you won't, but you might be able to do something in the indie industry. But the way they pay you, I don't think it's not that you're going to get paid something, which is good. But is it something where, if you have a family and 3 kids, are you going to be able to survive on it? Probably not. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the biggest struggles, like from a realistic perspective,
I think that one of the hardest things that I saw when I was with all these companies that I can share is that you can get it like for a colors assistant, like this, the master colors, and then was like me, which was an assistant. And sometimes I do the final render with instructions of the master colorist, or sometimes I just do flats.
Yep.
I saw a lot of job for inkers, to be honest. I want to share this with you. And IDW, Aspen, Boom, I work with them with
Aspen, wow, cool.
Yeah, and all these guys, I know, for example, David Curiel, which is a Marvel colorist and works with Pedro Delgado, was also a Spanish artist that works with Capcom, and all these big companies. And inkers, colorists, they can go in definitely, because if you are able to adapt like an inker, because there's a Mexican artist which is his last name is Molina. I don't Javier Molina, but his oh my god, his art is amazing, and his sister is his inker, and I met them in Comic Con some times ago. Yeah, okay. And she told me, I had to adapt my style to his style,
yeah.
So it doesn't change the
the flow of it. Well, his style basically. You want to capture his style, but in an inking format. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why she become her inker, and now is inking for him for long.
Kind of like Jim Lee and Scott Williams,
exactly. They're just like
exactly like that,
and they're like that, yeah. So
ultimately, I'd love to, or it's even like John Romanato Jr. and Klaus Janson. I mean, those guys are like the dream team. You know what I mean? They just
it's like they're connected.
Obviously, that's my goal, is to hook up with a penciler, and we just like I mean, and it's like Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and Sinclair there. The colorist, like those three together. When they put that book out, Hush, it was like, what? It was like a masterpiece, man. It was like on all levels, man. It was crazy. And ultimately, for me as an inker, I would love to do that. Like find my penciler, and shine
and that's what I'm trying to say is like, contact a penciler, and make tests for him and see if your own artistic style and you can connect with him, and then you can build a symbiosis. I had a friend that become a colorist of Pedro Delgado, and he was always with him, always and he's always behind together. And it's become a team. So definitely the hardest thing to enter to big companies is being a penciler right now, in my opinion.
Man. I mean,
it's crazy. It's super crazy. And the second, I think, is a colorist, and after that, I think inker. You have to connect with the penciler, of course.
Yeah.
Colors, in my opinion, is like, oh my god, I died there, definitely. And a pencil, I think the workflow is gonna be kind of cool, because you connect with the pencil and you're working on rhythm.
Especially if an inker understands the guy's style. Like, a lot of the like John Byrne back in the day, those guys would just do breakdowns sometimes, like, and the inker would fill in the rest. I don't want to do that, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean? That's a big responsibility, Yes.
That's so cool.
So that makes it interesting too, though. But that's a cool point. Like for me, it's like that's why right now, like, I have the time. So what I'm doing is I'm just finding different pencilers that I can ink over. So I scour the internet looking for the next image I want to ink, and a lot of times I look at it looks really challenging. I'm like, I'm going to do it, And then sometimes I'll do a simple one because sometimes I'm not as motivated, but I trust the discipline, and I'll do something a little simpler kind of thing, just to keep practicing kind of thing,
That's
and then
a great approach.
I'll try other artists that I'm completely unfamiliar with that kind of style, but I'll take it as a challenge, because I gotta set my mind, because I might one day I'll get an ink job, and it might be someone I'm not familiar with, but at least I'll be familiar with all these different styles that I have been inking, that it'll just help me in the future kind of thing. That's how I look at it, So that's one of my things I've been trying to stress on, is try different pencilers, just get a feel for how they do it, and then how's my inking going to interpret their pencils,
That's
obviously you want to put a little bit of your style in, but you shouldn't. You should always try to follow the penciler, but I'm not getting paid now, so I don't care. I can do what I want.
Yeah.
So we enter the next question.
Go ahead.
What type of superhero or villain are you?
That's a good question, man. That's a good question.
If you were a hero,
between the Hulk and Kung Fu Panda.
That's great. That's great.
If they had a baby, it'd be me. I'm cute and cuddly, but I'm flexible, and I did martial arts for like 6 years. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
What's that?
Karate. I did Shotokan karate for a long time, and I blew my knee. And then
Me too.
Yeah, Yeah, I love it. My daughter still does it. She's been doing it since she was 5. Like I weaponized her, so she
That's
knows how to use a sword. She can use a. She knows what she's doing. She can pack a punch too, man. Woo.
wow, that's cool. I practice Shotokan also.
Oh no
Yeah.
way! Cool. What
Yeah,
belt
yeah.
did you get to?
First degree.
Oh, congratulations! That's amazing.
Thank you.
I was just about to make it to my blue advanced, and
I
my
see,
daughter
see.
just got her. My daughter just got her purple belt last week, so they do. Yeah, so she's getting there. She'll probably get her black belt the next 2-3 years.
It's
So awesome.
beautiful sport. Beautiful
Well, it helps.
sport.
It really is, and it really helps with your mindset too.
Yeah.
Because you interpret what you learn. Because karate is not like like moves and katas and like empiwazas, and stuff like bunkais. It's more than that. It's bringing it on the outside. So it taught me a lot about respect and
Yes,
stuff like that with
absolutely.
people. And that was one of the I bring that into my regular life. I always help my community. I always respect others. You know what I mean? So I think that plays a big role in who I am today too, and it helps my daughter too. And my daughter, she's so respectful and she's so cool. She's a gamer too, and she's an artist. And
That's so cool.
I got her.
So
I got her
cool.
all the cool things, the cool nerdy things that are cool now. So
Yeah, that's so cool. Right now, it's sorry.
So I would say the Hulk and Kung Fu Panda. If that's a
That's so
superhero,
cool.
I don't know.
That's so nice.
Like, a strange mix too.
I'm a lot of fun. The kids love me.
That's cool. Any weakness if you're like that? Any weakness?
I'm too nice. I'm too nice. I'm too giving. I'm too nice. It's a gift and a curse. It's a gift.
Yes,
and a curse.
absolutely. That's so
You know
cool.
what I mean? Like I have people who ask me for help. I have to help them. I can't help it. And that's one thing. My father, he passed away about 5 years ago, and we weren't super close, but we had a great relationship. And one of the things he taught me was, and it resonates with me, it's part of my mantra. He goes, you never give to receive. You give because you want to give and don't expect anything back. And I find that so fulfilling. When you're helping someone out, and that's why I help out those startup companies, and I don't charge for my time, but I give them a discount on the printing.
I see.
But I'll do all these things, but because I'm genuinely trying to, and people are shocked, like, what's in it for you? I go, nothing. I'm just happy helping you out, knowing that I'm giving you something of value, and I'm not asking you anything in return. And that speaks. It tells you a lot about my character, right away. It tells you where I'm from, and it builds a trust. Because I'm not just talking out of my ass. I'm giving you something of value, and they come back to me every time, and they respect what I say, and I give them some ideas, some pointers, and I'm happy to do that. You know what I mean? I'm happy to do that. So it's like, and that stuck with me, and that's part of who I am. So that's one of the things I like to do.
That's great. A true hero philosophy, definitely. So,
That's it, man. I'm a hero, man. I mean, I do stuff people don't know about, and
yeah, of course.
I don't care.
That's great.
I stopped giving a shit what people thought of me years ago, and it's a big weight off your shoulders. Like we talk about how we're insecure as artists, and it's okay to feel that way. Some of us are even depressed, but I don't surround myself with negative people, and I stopped giving a shit what other people say about me behind my back, because you know what? The people that know me and love me, and I don't care what anyone else thinks about me. And you know what? It's such a relief. It's like when you start
absolutely.
When you start
That's true.
You know what I mean? I don't care.
Yeah, that's
I know
great.
who I am. I know what I did. I know what I said. I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty awesome.
That's great.
So yeah, next question.
Okay, so how do you decide the brush size?
Well, that's a good question. So when I'm in my tablet, right, I usually like when I get an image, like a lot of the images I get are usually low resolution, right? So that's where understanding anatomy helps, because when I blow it up, usually it's like 72 DPI, 72 dots per inch, which is good for the internet. But if you're going to print it and you're going to need to have it at a higher caliber, I usually take that image, usually like they're 11 by 17 or 10 by 7, and I'll blow it up to 400 DPI. That way I can get my brush size at a decent size, and it's not blurred out or anything like that. But the image does get washed out a bit. So you're going to have to interpret a lot of the stuff, a lot of the lines. I wish I could show you. Maybe we can do another video where we could do a how-to or a visual, like my step-by-step process if you want. I'm happy to show you. So usually like, I mean, just custom, like there's a lot of custom brushes. I know Procreate's got some great brushes. I'm going to plug a friend of mine, Robert Marzullo. I think it's called Ram Studios. He actually built a couple of custom brushes for Procreate and for Photoshop, I think. And for some, I think it's like $4. And I like supporting guys like that. So I bought one of the brush sets, and he's got some great brushes in there. They're custom brushes. Some help you with cross hatching. But ultimately for me, I mean, there's a learning curve once you understand how it works and stuff like that. But usually when I start, I usually have a brush size, like the one I made is a custom one. So depending on the pressure, it'll go thicker or thinner. And that was one of the things that Todd McFarlane taught me when I was watching his videos, you know, how you different pressure sensitivities. But I usually start my brush size at around 13, I don't know, 13 pixels. And if I go, obviously, you know, if I want to go thicker or not even thicker, but if it's a bigger drawing and there's a lot of black, again, I just fill it in, you know. And also when you're pushing down harder on it, you can actually go thicker with it. So if you want to fill in a small area faster, you can, you know. So that's usually where I start at one point.
That's great. So I move.
Okay, go.
I move. Okay, so let's move to the next question. So, when you traditional digital, and how do you approach? You have a project, and how do you decide if you go digital or traditional?
Well, that's just it. I only do digital. That's
or
the
digital.
only thing I've been learning on.
I see.
Like I said, I'm not set up for traditional. Last 2 years, I've been just honing my craft as a digital artist. I've had a few inkers that have been really, really helpful, and they reached out and they said, "Yeah, you got to do traditional." I'm like, "Nah, I'm not doing traditional. It's a whole nother learning curve." And I'm just starting to get decent at this medium, and to start over again, it's like, I just don't.
Yeah, focus in one thing, right? Yeah.
You know, I'd rather focus on this and get really good at it. And now, you know, it's a common form now. Like, as an inker, you can be, you still do traditional, but I think now being a digital inker, you can't even tell the difference anymore. Like, I know that Jason Fabach was an amazing. He used to work under David Finch. David Finch taught him, and now he's one of the top Batman illustrators, pencilers. But he inks a lot of his own work, but he does it all digitally. And he said you can't even tell the difference now. You know what I mean? I mean, so I think as a digital inker, I think if I was a traditional inker, I'd probably be a better digital inker. You know what I mean? Just because you're understanding the fundamentals, you're learning, you know, all the terminology and stuff like that. Like, I'm always learning. So I think if I had a traditional background in traditional inking, I think it might have helped me, or I might have got there faster as a digital inker. You know what I mean? Because I'm self-taught for this. So, but for me, I would always go digital anyways. You know what I mean? Because I just think I think especially in this generation, this time, it's all about time and deadlines. Time and deadlines. I mean, I don't see a traditional inker being faster than a digital inker. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think realistically, unless you're like one of the top pros or whatever, and even then, I think they still have to go slow, because I mean, you can't get spills and stuff like that. I mean, with a digital inker, you could just undo, you know, redo. Like, I'll do a line and I'm like, oh no, I hate that line. Control Z, you know. I'll do it
I agree.
or my arms, oh shoot, you know. So I mean, if I did that with a regular, you know, and it's gonna happen, it has to happen. No one's that perfect, you know what I mean? So if that happened in a traditional thing, imagine starting over. You get the liquid paper, and it's like,
yeah.
So
oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So to answer that question, I would just do digital for myself. Some people might feel more comfortable, but I still see guys inking traditionally, and it's taking them forever, man. It's like, holy shit. It's like watching paint dry, you know.
Yes.
It's too long, man. So I like the instant gratification too when you see it, like, oh yeah, and you zoom out. It's so funny, because when I'm inking, rarely I'm seeing the whole picture. I'm like this close to the image, and you're not even looking at the form anymore. You're just looking at where you have to ink, right? Yeah. And then you have to, sometimes you zoom out, and all of a sudden you realize you're down by the leg. You know, you have all oh shit, I better go back up here. You know, so it makes it kind of interesting. You know, so and then you zoom out and you see what you did. Like, okay, cool. And then you go back up and touch it up again, kind of thing. Or you can restart. Okay, I don't like the way this hatching was happening on this part, so I can just erase it and redo it. You know, I don't think you don't have that luxury with traditional inking.
No,
So
no, definitely
yeah, yeah. Next question.
not.
Okay, so when you are inking a penciling, do you follow the line of the pencils, or do you, when you feel that there is a change in the muscle mass or there is something to be corrected in the original pencils, you adjust it while you ink? So, do you follow the pencils as they are? What do
Well,
you do as an artist, as an
well,
inker artist?
well. Lately, I mean, I've been fortunate. The stuff I've been inking are like some of the top pencilers, right? So usually their anatomy is pretty accurate. Where I've done some indie stuff that's it's good, but there's some questionable stuff, and I'm like, am I gonna take the time to fix it? Because if I fix it, I don't want to insult the penciler. You know what I mean? So at the beginning, I was just like basically emulating what the artist was giving me and not changing it too much, just because I didn't want to. Because when you're first starting out, you don't want to insult anybody. You know what I mean? And the higher tier stuff that I was doing, their anatomy is dead on. Like David Finch, it's flawless, right? Stuff like artists like that, you don't really have to adjust it. You just basically you want to honor the lines as much as possible. I think, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And then when you're working from some indie stuff, you can open up some interpretation. I know those, one guy I was inking and his stuff was a lot of thick blacks, but I was extrapolating on that and adding some cross hatching to give it a little bit more depth, and it kind of changed it, but it still looked really good, So he was happy with it, Or another guy I was inking, his stuff wasn't super strong penciling, but he had some really decent panels. But it was just like, okay, what am I going to do here? Am I going to honor his pencils, or am I going to try to fix it and spend more time on it when I wasn't really getting paid for it? You know what I mean? So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pencil it. I'm gonna ink it and see how it comes out. And it came out good. Was it my best work? No. But I also think it's like goes back to what we're saying. When you want to find a penciler where you're gonna make that symbiotic relationship where his pencils and my ink are just gonna bring it to the next level. And then when we find the right colorist, it's just like it's gonna be magic, So that's the thing. But sometimes as an inker or a colorist, you don't have a choice who you get to work with, right? So you have to make the best of it. So I think now, if the same situation would come, I would try to, if it's really off, I would try to correct it. I would correct it, give it that shape, just because you want to give everything the best chance you can possibly do, and you want to always output your best work, right? So that's how I would approach it.
I see.
Okay, we'll leave the next question to you, Marcelo.
Marcelo.
Okay, so it says, when do you use thicker lines when you're inking? Is regarding the plane, the distance between the audience, or just?
Yeah, so that was something I learned later on. Line weight. I mean, I think that's critical. Line weight. I mean, I learned it the hard way, but it makes sense now that now that I see and understand it. From what I understand or what I've learned from other inkers is that thicker lines should be in front and background should be a thinner line weight because you want to create that depth. So obviously, like if the shoulder, is in more perspective, that should be a little bit thicker because you want that to emulate the depth, right? Or stretch or whatever, or perspective. And then stuff that goes back, that should be like a thinner line. So you go thinner with it. And then you can even do like a little, like some guys used to do this this jump skip kind of thing with the inking. So there's a little bit of space between it, and you don't really notice it unless you study it. And it was really because the guy brought it up to me the other day. I'm like, I never even noticed that. Like, again, I'm always learning, right? So I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't even know. I think there was guys at like Aspen Comics where they were doing that, and it's like a little skip kind of thing between the line break. And
they kind of make a contour. They kind of erase, I think, in the contour.
And then they kind of skip around it, and then they add another thickness to it, and like and something that minute just elevates your work. And it's like, wow, I never noticed that. It's like, okay, cool. So now I'm going back to my comic books and I'm looking, I'm not even looking at the pictures now. I'm looking at the line details and how they're interpreting it. And it's a whole new way of thinking, because before you just think, okay, I want to draw cool superheroes. Okay, I'm just going to ink over. I'm going to trace over the lines and, you know, but there's so much more to it. And you're not a tracer, you really are taking it to the next level. And so when you're doing that and you're studying, you're, oh wow, this is interesting. You know, look how we did the cross hatching here. You know, look how we simplified it here. And those are things, you know, if you're, you know, an aspiring inker or even penciler, just open up a comic book or your favorite artist and just look how they did it. Like really like analyze the picture. You know what I mean? Like just take a step back. Don't read what it's saying. Just read the image. And you know, whether, you know, how things are in the foreground and the background, you know, how the shapes, the perspective works, and you know, and then you try to, you know, soak it all in. And then when you're actually going back to your artwork, these things are going to resonate with you, and they're going to play back. And you're like, yeah, this is what they meant by this. This is how I can do it. So, yeah, that would be my advice.
Okay, cool. Well, here's a question from one of our audience. How do you ink water?
Ink water. So obviously, depending on how the penciling came out, I know I've done water before, and it's like the reflective part is white, like a negative space, and then you have like a ripple, use a very thin line, and then you have a thicker, like a blotch to try to emulate the water, but you also have like it's hard to say without visualizing it, right? But I know that you have like your focal point. Some parts are darker, and then it goes to negative white or white. And then if you want to have ripples, I would use a very fine line, like use one of your finer nibs there, because usually the water's in the background anyways, or something, or if you're in a sewer or something, you know, like a cool scene, depending on how the light hits it. But a lot of it's like hard black and white, like black images, like solid shapes, and then you have a little bit of like very thin lines to show the ripples in the water. That's how I would attack.
I see.
Okay, well, actually, I will be asking this question to you both, as an inker, as an industry colorist, Marcelo.
We have a buzzer.
So,
me too.
Okay, so knowledge of anatomy. Okay, we have mentioned it while we are talking together about knowledge of anatomy. How much does it affect your work? If you are a beginner, how knowledge of anatomy can raise your works? How can make it look down and look bad, while it can make your works look very professional? While the same thing is to you, Marcelo. How can you make this knowledge of anatomy help you while coloring? So let's head with Tim first.
Well, I think anatomy is important for any artist, whether you're a colorist or an inker, especially as a penciler, right? And they always say the same thing. You got to know your fundamentals. I mean, you got to understand anatomy, especially if you're a penciler, you know, and perspective. So it's like one of the best things to do is I mean, there's so many references now you can get online now. There's spreadsheets now with people's facial reactions from different angles, different lighting. There's 3D programs now where they have like 3D models that you can design in your own shape. You can do like your own action pose. You know what I mean?
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
I mean, reference is critical, right? Because you got to get it right, because you're trying to create this visual illusion that, you know, these superheroes are really happening in space. So you can't have like an arm going off like this, and you really got to understand. And everyone, you know, it says, you know, hands are the hardest, right? Probably are, but there's so many reference sheets that you can use for that. You got to practice it. I mean, Todd McFarlane said, you know, when he was drawing, like he would spend a week just drawing an arm, you know, just practicing sketching arm different perspectives, you know, and the same thing applies. But there's so many. I think it's critical. I think you have to understand the human anatomy. Whether you're an inker or a colorist, because you're going to have to, when you're coloring, you have to create that shape. And if the penciling isn't accurate, everything stems from that, basically. So I think as a penciler, I think it's paramount that you know anatomy. And I think if you're as an inker and a colorist, you should know it too. You should be familiar with it. Maybe not as in depth as a penciler, because you want to create dynamic angles. You know, you want to create some really interesting shots. I mean, even if you ever looked at the book How to Draw the Marvel Way, you know, they give you 3 images where, you know, they have 3 characters like this, or they're all off on the side like that, you know, like which one looks more dynamic. So you want to prepare yourself to illustrate these dynamic panels. because you want them like, I mean, when the image came out with, you know, like Cyberforce and like Youngblood, I mean, Mark Silvestri said it best. The images leapt off the page. It was action packed. It was like watching like a Michael Bay movie or something, you know, like you said. And it's true though, they did. So you want to be able to create that action. So knowing anatomy is the fundamental. Now making that anatomy look cool, that's the hardest part, I think. You know, anyone can draw the standard pose or whatever, but can you draw a pose like where he's like this, and you know what I mean? That's where it becomes a real challenge. But that's where the fundamental, and I think personally doing live drawing classes, like, you know, where they have a nude model and you're sitting there drawing different angles, you know, that's the best thing, because they'll do some crazy angles and it's going to get you familiar with sketching, you know, like doing some lay down some sketch work, you know, like some base work, and then you can go back in and fill the details. But you can only do that if you know the anatomy. So what do you think, Marcelo?
Well, in my case, when I started to be a colorist, that was one of my main issues, because my coloring started to have a good level, but my line art was crap. So I didn't have the basic knowledge of anatomy, more than a Japanese cartoon used distorted blocks of muscles that always,
manga.
yeah, like manga, they always look flexed. So it took an education, and it took like a training to me to understand, for example, that when I wanted to color, for example, once I helped color a volume of Justice Leagues, and everything was wearing spandex, and I was putting very flat cell shade kind of color, and as soon as they see it, like, this is not okay, right? So I start to kind of, at first just follow the instructions of the corrections, but then I need to take education to understand the lighting, first lighting, second, even sometimes 2 or 3 lightings in different positions.
And lighting's critical too, man, especially
and
when you're inking, and then especially when you're coloring.
Yes,
it takes on a whole new life of its own. It's very organic too, right? So
yes,
that's a challenge. That's a challenge for sure.
So it was challenging, and definitely you have to understand anatomy when you are coloring, because even if you're coloring clothing, you have to understand there is a muscle below, and that will project a specific volume in the clothing, and then you have to put that. And also texture and stuff like that, and contrast,
and there's
and
shading in the wrinkles. There's highlights on this stuff. Yeah, for sure, man.
So definitely, I need to study anatomy. I start to study, for example, the first thing that I start to focus is in Loomis. Of course, I read the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. It's a must. It's a must. It's a must. It's a must. Yes.
Yeah.
And
yes. That's one.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm on Amazon. I think everyone should have one of these. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of that. It's also inspiring to read this kind of that book. Is
a lot of the stuff still applies to today.
Of course.
You know, the cool thing is too, they have that book on video. There's a video of that, and you
TV
see,
series, like a series.
John Buscema and Stan Lee, and it's a video version of the book. So if you don't want to buy the book, just go, you know, like How to Draw the Marvel Way, Google it. It's going to come up, and you guys can watch it for free. And I've watched it 100 times. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and this is another good book too, The Art of Todd McFarlane.
Oh, McFarlane, yes, McFarlane is this. You
know what I mean? It's like he even said the best. He's not the best artist, but he knows how to make his stuff look cool.
That is the thing. He if you analyze McFarlane art, because I grew up being a fan of him.
Yeah, well, I think we all did. That's
but he kind of, you know, was criticized in the beginning of his career because he was doing all this kind of, he wanted the things look cool, and that philosophy of I wanted this to be cool, making him a success. Also in the toy industry.
Cooler because anyone, even said, because I can't take credit for it, but it's like anyone could have changed the way he did and move things. I just wanted to make it look cool, and it was that simple. And he had the same philosophy when he started his toy company for his action figures. How can I make it cooler?
Yeah, that's it.
Anyone could have done it before, but they didn't, and it goes back to, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Agree.
You
Exactly,
don't have to reinvent
exactly.
the wheel to make something look cool. You just gotta,
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
have to have a good idea. You have to have vision and passion and make it happen.
I
You
agree.
know, and surround yourself with people that share your vision.
Yeah, I
And it's
agree.
the same thing
Yeah.
for a comic book. You have an idea. If it's a good idea, people will jump on board with that idea. They will share your vision, and they will make it happen. You don't have to be the best inker in the world. You don't have to be the best penciler in the world. But if you have a team of people that you put together that share your vision, good things will happen, guaranteed.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Nice.
Well, there is a question that I would like to ask you both to again. Well,
Sure.
the first
Sure.
one, when you are inking something, Tim, when you get specific pencils from an artist,
Okay.
these pencils, there is something you don't like about, or there is something that you actually seen that it's kinda too hard or too off to do while working. So,
Well, I know for me, like, I mean, I have had the luxury where I can just pick and choose what I want to ink, right? So for me, I look at stuff and I'm like, oh man, that's gonna take me 2 nights. You know what I mean? No, seriously, I mean, it's gonna take me forever. You know, and then like there's another piece I'm looking at right now, and it's the Batman on the Batmobile, and it's like stupid detailed, like it's all mechanical, but it's got action. And like if I do this, man, it's gonna get 1,000 likes. You know, but it's such a crazy picture, and like I keep putting it off because I know it's gonna take me a long time, and it's gonna be very challenging technically because when you're inking like like humans or superheroes, there's a sense of they're organic, so it's forgiving. You know, when you're inking it, it's forgiving. But when you're doing a motorcycle or a tank or something like that, and there's a lot of detail in the tank, now it's like you can't be organic about it. You got to use your lines. You got to use every tool in the book, especially which is great about from a digital perspective is that there's a lot of tools that you can do to get these straight out lines, these perfect curves. But that's a whole nother thing in itself. So now it becomes challenging now, and to interpret that from an inking perspective, it gets really hard. So I keep putting it off, but I'm going to eventually do it. But like I did another one where I did an image of Cyborg, and he's like kind of like this, and you see his whole hand like disassemble and being reassembled.
I have seen this image.
I think you might have seen that one. I think I put it on the site, and I was very excited about that one because I put everything into it. I'm like, okay, well, this is technical. It's got to look cool, you know? And it came out like I was really pleased with the results, and it was really challenging because I was using there was a technical element, you know, like the machinery of his arm or cyborgness or whatever is cybernetic extension, and then he had the actual like the organicness of his body, and some parts of it were obviously metal, and some were muscle fibers. And so for me, it was a smaller piece, but it was a challenging piece, but it was very rewarding when I finished it. You know what I mean? So that's how, like, for me, it's like I always want to get better, and I also understand like sometimes I'll take a piece where it's all like background, like buildings. No one well, that's the thing, right? Some people like, I know the image guys say it's not just drawing action all the time. Sometimes you have to draw a conversation, you know, and it's not all like bells and whistles and explosions and like punching and
punches,
machine guns. You know, sometimes you have to show a conversation, you have to show background, and that's where the real artistry comes in. How well can you interpret that? You know,
I agree.
For me, it's like I did this. I inked over some of Mike Diodato. I think he's from South America, I think, or something, but he's or maybe Mexico. I don't know. Mike Diodato, and he's an amazing artist. And I found some of his panels for Spider-Man, and it was just a conversation with Mary Jane and Peter Parker. And that for me was one of my first things I challenged myself with, because it wasn't the most exciting thing to ink. I was like, this is kind of boring, but that's part of the job, right?
I agree.
That's part of the job, and you have to get used to that, you know? So you got to fight through that stuff. And it's not always about action poses and explosions and cool, like heroes coming out of panels. And sometimes you got to do the real boring stuff too, but that's where the real work is, because not all the comic, usually, you know, like a third of the comics action, the rest of it's all like talky, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
So, and what do you think? What's your perspective on that?
So the question is how I approach to a challenging illustration or something like that?
Yeah.
Do you think that the pencils and the inks you actually receive always receive the final inks before you color. So when you think about the line art, what's the hardest thing that pushes you off from this artwork or makes you encouraged enough to be working on this piece?
I'll
Oh,
be right
well,
back, guys. One, go. What?
yeah, sure, no problem. Well, in my case, I never I only ink one freelance job in the past. Always was or a penciler or a colorist, always like that. So I think uh, when it was very hard for me, like a colorist, to see, I received sometimes even pencils there were not ink because the artists decide to not to ink the illustration, and the writer and the artist wanted that I color directly from pencils. So the thing that unmotivated me a lot was cities. Cities, big cities, like especially I was working with David Curiel, and we were working in the comic book. It's called The Scorch, which is kind of like a zombie kind of bumper kind of project, and they fight sometimes in the cities. And there's a wing creature, zombie-like, and I start to see the reality, like, oh my god, why they have to fight in the middle of New York, and in the 3-point perspective, like warm size with all distorted, and God, the artist put every window of everything. It has to be, it has to be color. So you see me there's selecting each window
Window
of,
and adding a little tint.
and like, oh my god. And with David, it was kind of a little bit relaxed because sometimes I just, for example, color the far away kind of buildings in a big flat blue vanish to the sky, and that was it. But when I work with IDW and I get with Dan Schuming, oh my god, that like Dan, he's crazy. He is a great artist. He has all my respect. But what he does is that he uses the 11 by 17, professional Bristol board paper.
Yeah.
But then you have a panel, and what he does is he doesn't draw it in that panel. So he kind of do it again big in another paper, then it make it small and they crop it in this page. So the problem with that is it steals a lot of details there.
Yeah, even when you shrink it, it's still a lot.
Yeah, you can check a little bit of what I did in Ghostbusters. I worked from volume 1 to 13, and all that, and you can check that. And this guy was crazy. There was a scene of a library, and it was a kind of was a ghost, and there was kind of the Ghostbusters were kind of searching for the ghost. And I saw a lot of books, and Dan actually draw each book.
Oh,
Different sizes, different things, different details, and it took me I think like one day and a half to finish that, because he wanted that each book looked different, like a small collection of 5 that look green, other like brown and stuff like that. So that all motivates me a lot. Books and windows, books and windows for coloring.
Yeah.
For coloring, and for like right now, I'm working like a comic book artist, and I am trying to avoid that. But now I have an assistant, so they are suffering for me now.
Cool.
but definitely, for example, I sacrifice a little bit because I'm inking, I'm drawing, inking, and coloring.
Oh,
and I have, yes. So and I have a flat color assistant, and sometimes he helped me with the render. Sometimes when I'm very busy.
Yeah.
But I sacrifice a little bit of something. For example, if I have a big city, I sacrifice a little bit of the inks, for example. Or sorry, from the pencils. So I try to balance because I'm doing everything alone. So yeah, cool. City in libraries is not a lot of work. Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. These are all the questions we had already. So.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks. Actually, it's been fun. I enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
great meeting you guys. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate. It. I had a blast. It was awesome. Hopefully,
Thanks to you, Tim.
we might have helped a couple of people or get some insight, or give some insight to the industry that they're not familiar with. So hopefully, someone will get something out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe in the future we can, if you have another project or you want to share something, you can also be here again and talk and share all these kind of things.
I'd love to come back, and maybe we'll put some artwork up for like both our works kind of thing, and we can show some of our process. So
that will be cool.
Get a visual and see what we actually do and how we do it. I'd be happy to do it. You know what I mean? It's a learning center basically, right? And if people can get something out of it, we never know who we could help. The next McFarlane, the next Jim Lee or something.
Yeah, it's actually, I really think that this is kind of the second wave of great artists right now, because
absolutely, man, there's some phenomenal stuff out there coming, and it's like, what?
Right now is the golden age, to be honest. Yeah.
Not even for Marvel or DC, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Waiting to hit their break kind of thing,
And, these companies are great because they give you kind of like the name.
Well, it's the fundamentals of where we all got our start and love for comics, right?
Yes, I agree.
We know everyone knows who Wolverine is. Everyone knows who Captain America is. Everyone knows who Professor X is. But maybe everyone knows who Spawn is now. It's like that's like such a household name, but that's a non-Marvel product.
Yeah.
The Savage Dragon, but who knows what the next one's going to be, right? Like
there's a lot of projects. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, and I'm
a lot of
indie projects, and I'm like, wow, I kind of want to read that, because the art's gorgeous. I like the idea of the storyline. I can't wait for it to come out, and I'll help go fund it, kind of thing. I'll donate to it. I'm happy to do that.
One example of this, what you're saying, Tim, was Mossguard, which is kind of like the art is kind of like not superhero oriented. It's kind of fantasy adventure, epic adventure. But they are kind of small mouses. And do you saw that project?
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
And it was an independent project, and the artist did everything by himself, and I think with a little colleagues, and he won an Eisner.
Yeah, an Eisner Award. Yeah.
And it's like, I cannot believe it. And it was independent. He was just working his studio when he was free. And he was writing and doing everything, and suddenly he presented, and he becomes so successful and original. And now it's kind of like you have a lot of the place. So definitely, I really think that
goes back to the indie developers. Like, don't write for yourself. If you believe in what you're doing, do it. Like, people are like, oh, I don't have time. Well, make time.
Yeah.
Like I said, trust the discipline. Do a little bit every night. Someday, even if it's 5-10 minutes a day of writing your script, that 5-10 minutes the next day might turn into 20-30 minutes.
Yeah,
and
agree.
It's gonna take on its own thing, and then you get more excited. Just keep doing it, and then another day you're just gonna write one line. That's okay. Just trust the discipline and keep doing it. Whether you're drawing or writing, do that, and I'm very confident that you're gonna. It's gonna change the way you think of doing things.
Yeah.
Any social media that you want to share to the audience?
I mean, I usually post on all the main channels. I mean, obviously. You guys are amazing. The art show, I follow other communities too, like How to Draw Comics. They have a wealth of knowledge. I think that's where I met you, Andrew. And there's a bunch of places like Excited Comics. But if you guys want, you can check out my my Instagram. Just search Red Bouche, REDBOUCHE, and I post all my artwork there. It's not a personal page. It's my personal artwork that I put up. I just post up there, and I just get my artwork out there and see what people think, and if I can inspire someone, or if I can get some work out of it, great. Otherwise, if not, I'm still gonna keep doing it.
No, absolutely.
I'm only gonna get better. It's all good, that's pretty much it. So thanks so much for having me, guys. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, brother.
We'll see each other again soon. Let me know if you want to do it again. I'm happy to help out. I'm happy to participate.
Absolutely.
We would love.
Let me know, okay, guys.
We would love to.
Excellent. Cheers. Peace.
Take care, man. Okay.
Have a good
bye.
one, guys.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye.